All right, so question 1. Mental health parity clearly provides a great deal of community benefit, but what are some potential limitations within this legislation? And your response should connect parity legislation to the models of slide 13 from this week and slide 14. Oh, it's slide 13 and 14 from last week, and slide 5 from this week. So my answer is mental health has been losing on the forefront battleground over recent years in terms of healthcare services, and treatment of chronic conditions has been the major factor in spending for the U.S. The major reason being defunding for mental health services. The end result is really that rationing is occurring throughout the entire country, specifically for mental health, and this is leading to entire organizations being defunded and entire county treatment facilities being shut down nationwide. And the focus of healthcare services seems to have shifted to like treatment of chronic physical symptoms rather than, for example, prevention techniques and mental health services, which on a whole nother level could really save the entire country trillions of dollars, but that's a whole other animal that we don't have time to touch base on in this video. And this defunding and reallocation of the funding, is a form of rationing across an entire country, and resources are becoming more scarce, and for mental health services. And these services are like life-saving. Without mental health services, people are out there dying right now. Suicide is one of like the number one leading causes of death in our country. And this is really related to the medical model of care, which focuses on treatment of disease, similar to like physical disease treatments. Rather than, like I had mentioned earlier, prevention of disease in general. So a prevention of mental health, and whenever like mental health symptoms pop up, being able to treat that. So this really did remind me somewhat of this medical model of care. Question 2. An article from this week's reading presented different perspectives on Senate Bill 763 based on the NASW Code of Ethics, named 2 potential ethical dilemmas related to civil commitment and SB523. So I put down informed consent, Section D, in instances when clients are receiving services involuntarily, social workers should provide information about the nature and extent of services and about the and their right to refuse. So, for example, when a client is experiencing anosognosia, which is when a person with mental illness doesn't even realize they are sick, and potentially may need involuntary hospitalization for the purpose of preserving their health. So that would definitely be like a huge ethical dilemma. I also put down 1.14, clients who lack decision-making capacity. So when social workers act on behalf of clients who lack the capacity to make informed decisions, social workers should take responsible steps to safeguard the interests and rights of those clients. This also pertains to being an advocate for a client and making the decision for a client who may be experiencing anosognosia and may be temporarily unavailable to make the decisions for themselves. So part B, question 2, share your perspective on what a social worker's role should be in the civil commitment process and explain why. The social worker's role is that of a professional support system and advocate for the client. So keeping in mind the client's decisions to a reasonable extent, and if the client is incapacitated, then make decisions for the client, and really trying to focus and understand this is a temporary form of support until the client can be stabilized, as client should be fully involved in their treatment plan and be making decisions for themselves. Unless, for example, a client's mental health issues is causing the client to become a danger to themselves or others. Question 3. Slide 14 presents selected findings that connect adverse mental health outcomes with capitalism. Part A. What is your opinion about this relationship? 100%. I agree with this, and I feel as if the American dream is just a huge excuse for big companies to further bridge the gap between the poor and the white elites. I feel as if by them glorifying the American dream, they're given like a hall pass of sorts to just continue sucking funding and resources from what little's left for the low income majority of America. Really, for the purpose of just building their already massive empires, which is in turn definitely causing mental health issues as services are so scarce for people. Part B. When did this relationship become significant? Was it always significant? I would say it's been growing. It's been growing for a couple decades. So as the gap between the rich and the poor continue to expand, these negative mental health outcomes are continuing to increase as the shortage of services available for them continue to lessen and become more and more scarce. So we already are at a point of rationing resources for mental health, and it seems like it's just becoming less and less available. Part C. What are the benefits and limitations of program and services offered within the system versus grassroots efforts? So although there are doctors available to provide services, in hospitals, as of the moment right now, without grassroots efforts to fight the growing divide and rift of services available for health treatment, there will be very few parties involved with stopping big business from taking over and monopolizing the healthcare industry. Question 4. The module explored critical intersections of mental health, structural racism, and prison policing, capitalism, and disability. Did you learn anything that was new to you? How did this knowledge impact your approach to direct practice and policy advocacy? One thing I really did take away from this is this new phrase that I learned, and I keep pronouncing it wrong. It's asnognosia, and I think this term would really be useful for my future clinical work in understanding irrational behaviors. So clients experiencing mental health issues that to me may seem irrational at the time. It'll help me understand that these clients are just really in that moment too sick to know that they are sick, and just trying to ground myself and understand, with that phrase, I'll just remind myself this is a temporary moment for them. They are going through this brief period of not being able to even understand that they are sick. And also, I think this also carries into my personal life, as I have a family member who is experiencing mental health issues, and this term, I really did enjoy being able to learn this new term. So I also wanted to point out the prevalence of individuals experiencing mental illness, and how I didn't know for sure that there was an increase of arrests made with individuals experiencing mental illness. But after seeing this content from this week, it really did further just confirm my beliefs that there is an increase of arrests for people experiencing mental illness, and this is part due to this institutional systematic flaws. So it's really a lot more than just arrests being made. It's a whole system that's in need of a whole makeover in a way. And funding for mental health services is just being put into increasing the police force, which is just again growing that divide between the rich and the poor, and perpetuating that cycle of poverty. So there's definitely a lot that needs to be worked on. Alrighty, that's it for this week.